Welcome back to the series. In here, what I have is a WordPress page, and I have created a template here, and I'm using two of my customers. I'm actually hard coding their IDs in these buttons. And to show you where they're coming from, let's go to my Stripe account. All right, so we are at my Stripe account, and I picked this customer, Moose Dev, and the Athlete WooCommerce one. These two customers, I'm actually going in there and collecting their IDs from here, and I'm using them right here in these two buttons. And when I click these buttons, they should take me to their corresponding Stripe customer portals, and that journey is not happening due to just these buttons, because using these buttons I'm actually calling a Bubble app right here, a very simple one, but it is going to be used as a middleware. All it's going to show is this spinning wheel, but we have all the configuration right here so that as soon as those buttons hit this page, this application will collect those user IDs from the URL and push them to the Stripe customer account. So let's test it out. Let's click here. Now Bubble came up, and now Bubble sending us back to Most Devs portal. And when we click back here, it takes us back to the WordPress. And when we try to go here with Athlete WooCommerce, same thing happening, and we are coming to Athlete WooCommerce's portal where he or she can update their personal information, billing info. They can make changes to their billing information, like the billing method, payment method, so on and so forth. And now let's go quickly to a diagram where it shows what exactly happening. All right, so this is actually what's happening. From our WordPress, those buttons, they carry in their URL the customer ID, and they go ahead and go straight to this Bubble middleware, where this Bubble middleware is catching those customer IDs from the URL, and this actually has all the configuration necessary to connect the user straight to the Stripe portal. That being said, let's go and set everything up from scratch. All right, before we start working on Bubble, I just wanted to show how this is set up. This is a WordPress template that I built. What's happening in the backend here. So this is what the code looks like. Basically, this is a template. I'm calling it Bubble Stripe Proxy. And I have some HTML here, very simple ones. The header and the customer's name, I hard-coded those. And here are the buttons. These two buttons, manage your Stripe account. So right here, it will be the URL for the Bubble proxy, which is this guy right here, right? Which has nothing but a spinner showing. But the tricky part is this, after this question mark. See, this is where I'm adding the parameter customer underscore ID. I mean, you can name it whatever you want, but what you can change is the actual customer ID. These customer IDs are collected straight from my Stripe portal, as I showed before. So this is how we are going to be launching our WordPress button towards the Bubble middleware, right? And just to get to a little bit more detail here, I just wanted to show that this is a simple page that I created in WordPress. And right here, I just loaded up that template, Bubble Stripe Proxy. So it has actually no content, but it's loading up that template, which is right here. And that name comes from right here, template name, Bubble Stripe Proxy. So once that's loaded, this page shows up just like we saw before, right here. So that's all the background on WordPress. Now let's get started on Bubble. All right, so if you have been following this series, you know that in our last two videos, we actually built this, and we actually set up the connectivity towards the Stripe customer portal. And that's the same kind of connection we're going to be using. But before we do, let's get started on our proxy page. which is basically we're going to go ahead and create a new page, and we're going to call it Stripe Bubble Proxy. And we are going to clone it from the index page, which actually has the flexbox layout and all the necessary things we need, a column layout, and the width and the heights necessary, right? Even though all this is going to do is display a loading spinner. So before we get to the back end, it's going to be a quick one. So let's get started here. Let's bring in an icon. All right, and let's type in circle. Okay, there we go. We're gonna use this guy right here, keep everything as is here, and let's just give it I'm gonna keep the fixed width, but I'm gonna make it large a little because that's all this is gonna have. 180 180, and we're gonna center it and give it a 200 pixel top margin, so it's sort of in the middle, right? It sits in the middle. All right, so now that our icon is snug as a bug in the middle of the page, now let's make it rotate. All right, so let's create a conditional, start one, and this condition would be this icon. Whenever this is visible, then what we do is, okay, we're gonna rotate it right there, make the icon rotate. With this logic in place, oh, actually I have to check this. Okay, now let's preview. Perfect, that's exactly what we wanted this page to do, but this is going to be a bounce off point. This is just going to show whatever time it takes from the WordPress page to jump back to the Stripe portal. All right, so now let's go check the backend, what's happening. Now, if you have been following this video series, then you know that in the video number 1 we set it all up, right? This API name, and we changed the authorization and private key at the header, and brought in the test secret key from my Stripe account and added bearer, and that's how we established the connection. And the second, we created the actual API connection, an action basically, which is create Moose portal, and we followed the Stripe API to collect this information. You probably remember this piece of information. This is how we got our billing portal API connection. I mean the connection string, which is the URL, and these are the information we fill this up with, the key and value, and later on we brought the customers, and this one was our customer's URL, right? So that being said, let's check out for a second what the API was telling us. So this is where we got all that info from, the Stripe customer portal API, and this is where we got the link, the V1 billing portal sessions, and this is where we knew that we have to use a post instead of a get. And when we click on that, and this is where we got those parameters, the customers and the return URL. I'm just repeating all that just in case this is the first one of the video you're looking at, so you know the detail. And this is the return customer information that this URL generates. Now let's go back. Okay, so whatever you saw there, the V1 billing portal session, we just added api-stripe.com, and that's how we got all this set up. And as a parameter, we just used one of my customers' ID right here. To be exact, this was this guy, the Brent Summer. His ID, we just hard-coded it because we needed a placeholder, right? So all that being said, and return URL on the other hand, it's still sitting at our old application, which is the one before you saw. But since we're going to be needing to go back to WordPress, so let's update this. All right, so from here, let's collect this URL because this is where we want our customer to return back from their portal. So let's go back. All right, so let's highlight this, Control A, delete, Control V, and that's it. So that's going to be now our return URL. So this has been fixed, but anytime you make a change, you should always reinitialize the call to make sure the data is coming in. All right, save that. So our main backend is ready to go. That being said, now let's go work on the workflow. Okay, so before we start creating a workflow, because the workflow will be on page load, right? And anytime this page loads, we're gonna go ahead and make it bounce towards the Stripe account. So we're gonna have to collect our URL right now, because otherwise, anytime we're gonna be loading this, it's gonna go ahead and send us to the portal. So this would be the right time to collect this URL. So let's remove this debug information, Control A, highlight. Okay, that way we highlight the whole thing and then Control C to copy it. And now let's go to our WordPress and let's go to the code here. And this is where we need to update this URL, right? So let's hold down to the control button. And this is VS Code, by the way, so we can actually handle two at a time. There you go. Now let's highlight the whole thing. Remove it. Control V to paste it. And add a slash. There you go. And Control S to save it. All right. So now we have our URLs up to date. And this is where our proxy app will be there. And this is where this is going to be the parameter customer_ID. Let's just copy it for now so that we don't have to come back here. Just Control C that customer ID, right? Now let's go back. Okay, so we are back at our app. Now this is our page, and this is where we're going to add a workflow. And what we're going to say is that when page is loaded, and let's give it a nice little color of red. And to make it dynamic, we're going to go ahead and search for get and choose get data from page URL. And now immediately it's giving us the choice of path, etc., but parameter is what we're going to be choosing. And since we copied our parameter from WordPress, we're going to just do a Control V, customer ID, and the type is text. And as you can see, there's a lots of other type you can pick from, but our parameter is a text one. So there you go, we close, this turns blue, we are on our way. And at this point you can make sure and look at here that the return URL is the WordPress URL, right? So we are set to go. And that being said, let's add the next step. So now that we have our connection, so next we're going to go to open external, navigation, and then open external web page. And in here, the destination should be our result from step 1. And from that result, we're going to collect this URL, because that's what the Stripe API is going to return. And that URL will take us to the customer's portal. Once this is done, and since all this happening at page load, so let's go and try out by refreshing our middleware page. See what happens. See, for a little bit of time the spinner showed, and then it is sending straight to the Brent Summers portal, because Brent Summer is the user whose ID we hard coded, right? Next, go back to the WordPress and test. All right, moment of truth. We are back at our WordPress page, and since there were some changes in the backend, so we're gonna have to refresh this page so that all the changes take place. And now let's go click here to go to Moose Dev's portal. Okay, our bubble kicked in. Boom, pushes us to Moose Dev's portal. And when we click return, we're back at the WordPress. And now let's try Athlete WooCom's portal. There we go. And here he can actually update his information. Why don't we just say something here just to test things? 123 street and city Atlanta, state Georgia, and 30324. This is where I used to live. Okay, and save it. Perfect. And let's go return. We're back here, and now let's just check if our address change took place. Let's go back to my Stripe account. So let's go check our Athlete WooCommerce page and look at this address change, 123 Street, Atlanta, Georgia. So we are right on the money. So if you like this video, please smash the like button and please don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please smash the like button and the subscribe button. This will help me bring more free contents like this to you every week. Thanks again.